Welcome back to the ZERT Coffee and Chaos Podcast, the show where we talk about anything and everything relating to what it means to be a survivalist and a prepared individual in today's society. I'm your host, Chris Bartigone, ZP002. Back with me, as always, my co-host, Jamie Franks. Jamie, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you here, as always.
Hey, thanks for having me. As always, I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. You know, it's funny because when we start these shows, and you know the intro plays and we play the intro only on the audio version and not on the actual video portion of this thing. And you know, when I watch other people's out there, their other channels, their creators, their videos, like they always start with like some blooper that happens first where they're like talking, they're like, oh, okay, we're back. I was just watching Jared over at Voodoo Tactical, and he had a hilarious video. We actually shared it on the ZERT Instagram, and I was just like, you know what? I guess I got to be more creative. But sometimes we're just not creative, and we're just handsome. So you're welcome.
Well, I mean, creative is one thing, but are these bloopers like cooked, or is it just something that happens and they just throw it in, or like
who knows, my man? Who knows? I will never ever claim to know anything about how the algorithm on the internet works, but all I can tell you is we are here. I don't much care how it works. I just really care about having this kind of dialogue and getting this information out. But
yeah, like on a bunch of like, you know, old shooting videos and stuff that I would do. One of my pet peeves has always been because a lot of content creators in the shooting sphere, like I'm convinced that, you know, they post a video of them doing this, some skills drill, and they nail it and they get some epic time. And like, because, you know, I'm a pretty good shooter. I'm definitely well above average. And, you know, sometimes it takes me a couple of tries to stick the drill, but these, you know, some of these content creators present it as if they're doing it cold and they just like smoked this awesome time on this drill. But like, really, you know, a person like me, I know they probably did it 15 times and they posted the one good one. So when I would do my shooting videos anyway, like I would always kind of post the bloopers at the end, like the ones, you know, two or three where I like majorly screwed it up.
But, yeah, of course, yeah. I get it. Well, that's what makes us awesome. You know what else makes us awesome is the fact that here at ZERT, and for being a ZERT member, you get access to our ZERT network of not only members and instructors, but you also get access to the brands that we partner with. A couple of those brands that we are partnering with right now that I want to talk about is U.S. Law Shield. And if you guys are carrying a firearm and you do not have some kind of carry insurance, I let you know that as a ZERT member, you get a discount. I think you get 1 month free for signing up for a year. But having U.S. Law Shield as a safety blanket, a security blanket, if you carry every single day, I think it's important. And I'm glad that I have it, and I'm glad to offer that to the fellow ZERT members out there. And if you need any information about that, you can click on the link below on the video portion of this podcast to find out more about U.S. Law Shield. And we are also 1 week out, just about 1 week out, 10 days, 11 days away from St. Paddy's Day. And if you guys are looking for that hot shirt to head out to the bars and drink green beer, then you should head over to Rad Palm and pick up their St. Paddy's Day party shirt. I do have one arriving, and it will be in a video coming out soon. But for now, we'll just show you what it looks like, and we will also put the link down below. Also, ZERT members do get a discount. So thank you guys for being here, for being a part of the ZERT family, and for listening to the show. Jamie, I think you need a St. Paddy's Day party shirt because
I might. I'm gonna take a look at that one, but this is one thing I'm like, well, one of the many things I guess that I'm kind of a nerd about is like every year for Halloween I buy like a different Halloween shirt because Halloween is my favorite holiday of the year. But also every year I buy a different St. Patrick's Day shirt, but like you can kind of only wear them on St. Patrick's Day, and like now I already have 10 of them. So you know,
very, very, very true. We do have a ZERT St. Paddy's Day shirt on the website, and it was designed by one of our members. The logo. So the company, so Rad Palm is a buddy of mine's company down in Florida. He's the one that got me hooked up with the company that makes our Death Blossom party shirt.
Mhm.
So it is that same style shirt, that same material, that same fit. I have, and I think I've worn it twice. So they have two other holiday shirts, if you will. One is a Halloween shirt. They've got a Michael Myers, and I think they've got a Jason
cool.
Voorhees. And then the other one, and I think I wore it around Christmas time, is the Nakatomi party shirt, where it's red and it's got MP5s and snowflakes. And I think the shirt is either called the Nakatomi or called the Ho Ho Ho. But
the Nakatomi party shirt's just a plain white dirty wife beater.
Oh yeah, well, that is if you are wearing no shoes and you are in the high rise on the actual day. But
you got to commit.
You do have to commit. I mean, you really do. Anyway, back to today's episode, and obviously, thank you guys for being here and for listening to the show. As you know, we publish our shows on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. All those shows go out on Thursdays, and also out on the Firearms Radio Network. And the video portion of this show hits on YouTube on the ZERT Coffee and Chaos channel shortly thereafter. So if you're looking to find the show, you can find them in those places. If you are heading over to YouTube, please do me a favor, like and subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified when we put out videos like this or other ones. The other ones will usually go on the main channel. So, all right. All of that out of the way, we are back to our regularly scheduled show while I drink some seltzer because I can't have 3 cups of coffee today. But this is kind of a continuation of some of the stuff that we have been talking about from that one Instagram post. And when we decided that we were going to break these up into each episode, this was one that you brought up that said, you kind of said that this is a really good one, because I think that there's a lot of people that might fall into this category. And, we talk about skill trumping gear a lot, right?
Yep.
And I think you can take that a step further and say old gear is maybe sometimes enough rather than having to go out and buy new gear, because it might not be broken, if you will. So, there's that old cliche, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. And
there's another old cliche that they don't make them like they used to.
That's true. That is true. Quality in some ways has definitely fallen off, and some of that old gear might be quality stuff that still works. It may be in your basement. You may have thrown it in a tote and whatnot, but it's still gear that works. One of those things that I can probably speak to real quick before we even get into it is holsters, right? We've talked about holsters, and we know that if you want to get a new holster, you can head over to the website, and then we've got 2 affiliate brands on there, Black Point Tactile and A&R Design. So if you're looking for a new holster, you can get one there. But if I had a problem, let's just say one of my holsters broke for my 19. I've got old gear that will work, right? So I can use that old holster and continue to carry that firearm until you need, I don't know if you need to get a new one, but how many people have old holsters that are still perfectly fine? Exactly. Perfectly fine. Now, I think we talked about this on a recent show where, yeah, sure, or maybe it was just you and I talking, you may get another gun that now has a light or whatnot, or, optic cut or tall, suppressor height sights. But, and it may not fit for that new gun, but, if you've got 319s, do you need 3 holsters? I don't know. 3 new holsters?
Then you need a 57.
A 57?
3 times 19. Anyway.
There you go. Quick math. I like it. Good work. And that's just, obviously, that's just holsters, right? We're going to kind of extrapolate this to a lot of different gear. And I know that you've brought some show and tell kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, I brought a couple just for examples. Because I think the actual phrase that was used in the post that we saw was sometimes old gear is good enough, or sometimes old gear will get you by, or something like that. But I mean, I would take that a step further, and I would even go so far as to say sometimes older gear is better gear.
Yeah.
Um,
The actual statement was you don't always need new stuff. Old gear can still cover your needs.
oh, there you go. Yeah. So actually,
Yeah.
that's pretty perfectly phrased then, actually. But
Yeah.
um, this is something we've talked about as it relates to several other adjacent topics, but a lot of people get caught in this trap of, you see a video of me when I'm fully kitted up and you think you need to have all the same gear as me, or you see a video of Grantham, which, if you get caught in that trap, good luck, because every time Grantham makes a video, he's wearing different gear every time. So if you're trying to keep up with him, I hope you got a credit card with a high limit. But um you watch things like that, or you'll see a photograph of the seals on the Bin Laden raid or something, and you're like, oh, I need what they need. And one thing I can speak to specifically as it relates to like that kind of thought process is, um, you have to remember, like, people that are in the military and people that are in special forces and Navy SEALs and guys like Grantham and guys like me, that I have an entire public storage unit that is like half of it is tactical gear that I got for
Right.
free from Uncle Sam, and the other half is like my Christmas decorations. But like half of a storage unit is old tactical gear. But and I always tell the story because of the era, or because of the windows of time that I went to Afghanistan in 2009, 2010, 2011. It was 3 consecutive years. In 2009, when we deployed, we had everything was the 3-color DCU, desert camouflage uniform. And so all of our tactical gear was just like the coyote brown tactical gear, over our DCU camis. So I have an entire set of, like, what at the time in 2009 was like the newest Gucciest stuff, all in coyote brown. And then 1 year later, we deployed again. We were part of a combined joint task force, so it was multinational, multi service, and so I got issued an entire whole other set of everything in multicam, because
Oh,
in the combined joint task force we all wore multicam, because
yeah.
that was something that everybody had. So I have a whole entire foot, like, backpacks, pouches, gear, chest rigs, slings, uniforms, like everything is in
Right.
multicam.
Right.
And then the next year in 2011, when we deployed again, during that time, the Navy had phased over into, all the other gear nerds out there, if you know, like AOR1 or ARR2, the Navy had transitioned over to that. So when I went to Afghanistan the third time in 2011, I got issued another whole set of gear that was
Jesus.
in, like,
Okay.
in
Wow.
the AR.
Yep.
So I've got all this stuff, but that's like all the non-military people that are out there listening, like, you have to remember that, like, I was given all this crap for free and I got to keep all of it. And
Right.
Grantham was probably given a bunch of his stuff for free. And that guy in that picture that's in SEAL Team 6 on the Bin Laden raid got all that stuff for free. And if I tear my stuff up, I get another one for free. Like, so,
Yeah.
um,
Now,
this,
let me ask you a question. If you were to retire tomorrow, how much of that stuff has to be returned?
none of it. Like, at this point, none of it. So when the unit that I was with at that time,
Yeah.
whether or not they were supposed to get it back from me then when I transferred, they didn't. I've always told everybody. So again, because I deployed in this little window of time where I got, like, I was like, gear was evolving kind of in real time during that period of time. So you can look at my armor plates and you can kind of see, like, the armor plates I got in '09 were good. And then the armor plates I got in 2010 were better. And then the armor plates I got issued in 2011 were, so it was like good, better, best. Um, and so, like, in '09, I got issued we called it it's the MSA, um, ACH helmet, advanced combat helmet. And it's
Okay.
the one that has the little ear things that come down, but I can wear my Peltors and everything under it. That's why the little ears flare out. And,
Yeah.
like, if anybody that's listening, like, if you've ever seen the pictures of, like, Jocko when he was in Ramadi, or that new movie coming out that's called, I think it's I sent it to you, didn't I? It's just called Combat, I think.
Don't remember.
Let me find it real quick. But if you see those, like all those types
Yeah,
of
those are all ballistic helmets, right?
it's called Warfare. Yeah.
Okay.
That new movie coming out that's about SEALs in Iraq is called Warfare. Like the first helmet I got issued was exactly like that. So if you see like the old pictures of Jocko when he was in Ramadi or whatever, my first helmet was like that, and I had it all because I'm me. I had it all tricked out with all the cool stuff and everything, and then I think it was for my 2011 deployment. That's when we had moved to what people know now is like the high cut helmets. And so I got issued a super Gucci, one of the high cut tactical helmets that had the rail system on the side and all that stuff. And so when I transferred, to answer your question, the only thing I had to give back, or the only thing they asked for back, was my night vision, my weapons kit, and that second helmet that I got issued. I don't know why to this day they had a super bug up their ass about getting that helmet back, because I had painted it and I had done everything to it and tricked it all out. And like, I really wanted to keep that helmet, but they were like not going to let me transfer until I got that helmet back. And it came down to me like stalling, trying to keep it. But long story short, they ended up getting it back, and because I had to transfer. So the only things I got issued all that crap, and the only stuff I ever had to give back was my weapons kit, my night vision, and that helmet. I still have the other one, and I still wear it, and I still use it.
So when they issue you gear, is it during a specific time? Is it just, you'll walk into work or on the base on a Monday, and they'll be like, hey, we've got to, you've got to get this gear issued? Or is it only during a transfer or be a deployment?
So I told in one of our recent shows, I told the story of my buddy who's also a senior chief, and he did a 21, 22 year career in the Navy, and in his entire time never got issued a helmet. So it depends on what unit you're with, what you're doing, and then sometimes it depends on specific deployments. So like when I was assigned to EOD, when I first got there, I got what was called my PGI, and that was my primary gear issue. So that was just like a basic generic set of just like not mission specific, just generic like tactical gear and stuff. So that was when I got my first helmet. That's when I got my first plate carrier, holster helmet, holster, belt, pouches, like all that stuff. And then
now hold on, out of that gear, how much of that do you still have and or use because it is better quality, more broken in, more familiar?
That's a great I was about to say all of it. That's not true. I would say like if the apocalypse happened tomorrow and I go and I run downstairs and gear up and run out into the fray, I would say probably a third of the gear that I would still use now is the stuff I was issued back then in like 2009. But the other 2/3 are stuff, that were issued to me in 2010. Like that's why, like, if you see a picture of me, I don't post too many pictures like this, but if you see pictures of me like in actual like full kit, if you look closely, like you could probably find like 5 different camouflage patterns within my gear, because I want to use I like this radio pouch the best, but it's multicam, but I like this tourniquet pouch the best, and it's desert cam, but I like this admin pouch the best, and it's just green or whatever.
That's an interesting point. When we sit here and we talk about gear that you purchase, I may purchase, maybe one of our listeners purchases. I have bought in the past a camouflage pattern, right? Multicam was always the one that I went and kind of did. But prior to that, like I used to just go for coyote tan because it was kind of basic, right? Like you don't have to worry about mixing and matching with other stuff. And then obviously there came out with that 50 shades of FDE because there was a different shade of it. But
it's funny that you mentioned that, and I'm laughing because this is another hard pill for civilians to swallow, because civilians are like buying this stuff with their personal paycheck. Coyote tan gear is great, because you can spray paint it in, like, so if you have a Coyote Tan piece of gear and you want it to be multicam or you can spray paint. And like, I'm laughing because if you look at my gun belt, there's two gun belts that I wear most often, and one of them, the med pouch, is a med pouch that was originally Coyote Brown, and like I took a little stencil and spray paint, and because I liked it and I wanted to keep using it, I spray painted it like as best as I could, like a digital green camouflage pattern that's spray painted over this, Coyote Tan med pouch. So a lot of civilians like, because they just paid for this nice new piece of gear. Some people view it like, if you spray paint it, oh, now it's ruined or it's whatever. But yeah, that's another good, just to your point, if you just buy the Coyote Brown gear, you can paint it to be whatever you want it to be.
Old school Coyote.
Yep.
But that's an interesting point, when you get issued, and obviously for anybody else who's not in the military, for just regular civilians going out there, civilians like myself that just go out there and get gear, new gear. I haven't bought a new piece of gear because anything that I've had has been broken. I made a couple of probably mistakes buying some new holsters, and as much as I do, like that Safariland, duty holster,
careful,
is a beast to buy, right? Like you're talking over $120 if you get it, right? Like, so it's not like, if you make the right call when you get that holster. And where I'm going to go with right call, and we'll see if you agree with this or not, if you are getting it for a Glock 19 with a Surefire light, get it for the 17. Maybe not with the Safariland, but I don't know if it works with the Safariland. I'd have to make sure.
It does, and
it does. Okay,
get
it for the bigger gun.
Yeah, and then it'll work for both. Because Chris makes a fantastic point. Because the holster, it's built quote unquote for the gun, but it's the retention is actually keyed off of, or tooled off of, the light, not the gun itself. So yeah, if you get the one for the 19, it'll work for both guns. But like
17.
Sorry, gosh, yeah, 7, law of primacy. Yes, if you get it for the 17, it'll work for both guns. But so that was a whole long soliloquy about, like, not falling into the trap of like seeing a picture of a military guy and being like, oh, I need all the gear he has.
Right.
Because like older gear in a lot of cases is better gear, and this is the category where, again, like, I don't know if this is just me. I don't know if you can relate to this one, but if you're like approximately my age, like mid 40s, your dad or your uncle, or so my grandfather was in World War II. My it's my dad's cousin. So what does that make him to me? My second cousin. He was so he was a Green Beret in the late 70s, early 80s. My granddad was in World War II. Like, many of my friends had dads that were in Vietnam, and like I still have, like, some of it I still have. Like my my second cousin that was a Green Beret in the late 70s, early 80s, he gave me this knife that's right over here off camera, and it's awesome, and I still use it and still love it. And he gave me this compass, like the old school Kaminga, like flip up compass.
Oh wow, yeah.
That's it's luminous and all that. And like, if your dad was in Vietnam and you still have like all his H gear and stuff, like, some of that is probably still usable, and you can take it and modify it slightly and it'll still be great. Like, this isn't my go ahead.
What I'm going to say right there is, I think that's the important thing. Sometimes you can modify old gear to give it a kind of new spin or new look or a fresh look. So
yeah, like the holster thing is, like, I, as a firearms instructor, I definitely always push people to like buy a holster that was made specifically for your gun. Like, don't go to Walmart and get the Uncle Mike's generic holster with the little snap button it's a universal holster. Those are terrible. But like other things, like this is an old Esbit stove.
Okay.
Little survival stove that takes the solid fuel blocks. These have literally been around since World War I. I've had this one since I was, I don't know, Boy Scout. I think I got it when I was a teenager.
Which is interesting because right here behind me over my left shoulder, which is, you can see my thumb pointing to it, that is probably a newer version of that kind of stove, but isn't like that one, where this one behind me is all panels that are slotted and they all kind of link and log together.
Yeah. But this exact one, I don't know if you could read it. It actually says ESBIT, ESBIT. There it is.
Okay.
Like that company has been making these. It's a German company, I think, has been making these like since World War I. And you take this little old school survival stove with this solid block of fuel, and you take your old GI canteen cup. I'm so ate up. I actually used this as my coffee cup at work for a while, so I drew the Wolverines thing on it and put my name on it. But you can this is a perfect survival stove.
Yeah.
For boiling water, for cooking, for scrambling eggs, for making top ramen. And this is all technology that's, well over 100 years old now. And, and it really is just as good as a jet boil or something like that, except the one way I would even say, going back to my statement earlier, that it's actually better is if this breaks in some way, I can repair it. Like if a jet boil or something breaks, like it's just done.
Yeah. So. And when we're talking about old gear, we're not talking, I mean, yes, it's a combination of old gear that you may have in a tote in your basement that you forgot about, but also going to an estate sale or a tag sale or maybe an Army Navy or stuff like that. Like you find old school stuff. Like I've got one of those, and I thought it was a military cot, but it's not. I mean, it's a camping cot, but it's one of those cots that you pull it out and you open it up and you slide the bars in and you lock it in, and it's like a single person cot, and it's awesome, and it's older, and I forgot I bought it at a tag sale for probably $50, and you find it now on the internet and it's still $199. The one that I have works fine. You know what I mean?
So that was the next little visual aid that I have here. This is an M7 bayonet. Wow. I haven't had this one since I was a kid, but I had one when I was a kid that was this exact same thing, and it came from Bob's Army Surplus in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I bought it probably for $10 when I was in the third grade. You went in there and they had a box of them, and I found one that was pretty nice, and I used this, not this one, but I still have the one, just for the one that I used when I was 9 years old. I still have it. It's just in my storage. But I used it when I was a Boy Scout. This exact type of knife, the M7 bayonet. This is the type of bayonet. This is Vietnam era that was meant to go on an M16. If you have an AR-15 that has the old school front sight base, this will still go on there today and click right on there. But I got it. If memory serves, I think I got it for $5 at an Army surplus store when I was like 9 years old. I used it the whole time I was a Boy Scout. The one I had when I was a kid, like this one has a nice sharp point on it. The one I used when I was a kid, like it actually became rounded off because I used it so much. But since I wasn't going to use it as a bayonet, I had my dad cut a little section out of the ring, the bayonet ring, and he closed it up and just welded it solid. So it was a nice handguard. And this was a $5 knife that I got at an Army surplus store when I was 9 that I used as a camp knife for many, 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 many years. And it was awesome. And I still have it. So this is another good example, exactly what you just said. Like you can go to an Army surplus store and find something like this. Except I did want to, this is one of the things that I wanted to bring up is certain things. Because I have an M4 bayonet, and when I say M4 bayonet, I'm not talking about a bayonet that goes on an M4.
Right.
Like this is an M7, the one that I was just holding up. But the M4 is just like the older one. It's like World War II, like late World War II, Korean War era. Right. It's the bayonet that was meant to go on an M1 carbine. I have one of those too, but like certain things like that have now crossed over the Army Navy surplus store line and have now become like valuable like military collectibles. So do be careful about that. Like if you're going through grandpa's old World War II gear, understand that like it might be cool to use that old M4 bayonet, but you might also could sell it on eBay and make enough off of it to buy yourself a nice new half face blade or Montana Knife Company blade or whatever. But this
My
one,
uncle or my grandfather was also in World War II, and I believe he was Air Force. I have
Air Force didn't
his.
exist in World War II.
Oh, well, then maybe it was just Army.
He was Army. If he was in the Air Force, it was Army Air Corps. But yeah. Anyway, sorry.
He had I have it. It's his gravity knife.
Oh yeah.
So where it's a wooden handle, rounded, and it's got a spike on the bottom, and then it's got like a trigger. And when you push that trigger down, that blade drops into place, and then you let that trigger go, and it locks. Very old, not sharp, but it's it's one of those that's from World War II, and I believe I don't know if that was American or German.
So
In
I
origin.
don't know where it's at. Maybe I still have it, but I had one that was probably somewhere like 1960s, 1970s era, that was a Russian one. Exactly what you're talking about. So to your point, it probably was German or something like that. But there's the scene in Red Dawn where the famous scene where all the Wolverines, the guys from the Russian tank, are chasing the girl through the field, and all the guys pop up out of the ground and shoot them. The Russian officer, he has one of those because he flips the little trigger and like slings the blade out, because it's not a switchblade. It's like you said, it's a gravity knife, but he's using one of that.
Yeah, so it actually is a German.
Yeah.
It's a German paratrooper, so that's where I got confused. So it was from a German paratrooper, and here it is. This is it right here.
Oh,
so
yeah.
This was the beauty, or is the beauty. And then obviously on this backside, it's got a spike that comes out. But that is a German, let's see, what are they calling it? A Falsch. I'm going to butcher the shit out of this, but a Fallschirmgeiser.
Fallschirmgeiser, I don't know.
Fallschirmgeiser, whatever, gravity knife. You can buy them still to this day for $129 on the internet. So there you go.
Well, so again, just like the one I had was looked almost exactly identical to that one, except mine, it was like the handle was like plastic or Bakelite or whatever, and it was like army green, and mine was Russian, and was again, anybody that's approximately our age, you would remember like around 1992, 1993, after the fall of the Soviet Union, like all of a sudden at every army surplus store in America was like flooded with that like Russian surplus military gear. So I did not pay 120 whatever dollars you just said. I got mine at a gun show back in my hometown, probably around 92 or 93, and I probably paid $7 for it or something.
Well, yeah, and obviously the ones that are on the internet here are reproductions of the gravity knife carried by the German flying personnel, including the paratroopers here, and so that is just a little bit of history when it comes to old gear. Now, in a situation like we're talking about, old gear might satisfy your needs. Would that knife satisfy my needs today if I needed a knife? Well, that really depends, right? I mean, sure, it would if you had kept up with it and make sure it was sharp and whatnot. Yes, it is a cutting tool, and I could use it to cut something that needed to be cut. Would I rely on something like that? Because if you guys are not aware, we've talked about this. We talked about this recently on a show. If you're not aware, for a camping type situation, I'm taking a saw and a fixed blade knife into the woods. Those are my two cutting tools, if you will. Would I be able to use that in the same way that I would be able to use like my DMO crossbreed or the VTAC Norseman? Probably not.
Yeah.
But so it will definitely come down to task specific item or task specific gear, but there's definitely a use for old gear. I mean,
and one last example of show and tell here before
Sure.
I switch gears a little bit. Like this knife is a perfect example of like even from a military standpoint, like of they don't make them like they used to. Because
Yeah.
also now, like I said, we live in an era where, you know, even as a military guy, where even if I'm getting issued the most nicest, like, you know, I have a set of camis or I'm sorry, I have two sets of the Desert AOR, the AOR1, and it's Patagonia. And
Okay.
if you go on eBay right now and look for Patagonia AOR1, like one set of that camouflage is going to cost you close to $1,000. I got it for free. And if I tore it up, I turn it back in and get another one. So the military even has gotten into this mindset of like disposable gear instead of like issuing you something that's built to last that you can repair. And so again, this my dad's cousins, my second cousin that was a Green Beret, and like just before like Desert Storm era. I think he got out of the army right before Desert Storm. But he got me this knife, and just like I said, the bayonet that would have gone on like an M1 carbine was an M4 bayonet. The one I just held up a second ago was a Vietnam era M7 bayonet. This was the M9 bayonet from the
Okay.
late 80s, early 90s. And it's really a bummer that they don't make stuff like this anymore because it's so cool. This knife has so many features. Like number one, it's a bayonet, and same thing, it'll click right onto an M4 rifle or an M16 rifle if you have the bayonet lug. This knife looks very Rambo-ish in its size and shape, and it has the saw teeth here for like sawing through wood. It's actually like legit saw teeth. It has this hole in the end. Do you know what that hole is for, Chris?
I believe it has something to do with the sheath.
So right, so the sheath, if I had this clipped to my belt, it quick disconnects, and on
Oh,
the
you got
end of the
predator
sheath,
camo. You
yeah,
got predator camo on there.
yeah, on the end of the sheath, it has this little gizmo,
Yeah.
and so the knife actually, let's see if I can do this on camera. The knife actually locks on to the sheath like that, and then with your sheath and your knife, it becomes bolt cutters, and you can cut through barbed wire or you can cut through a chain link fence, and like they don't. And then it has a pouch on the front of the sheath. You know what that pouch is for?
Sharpening
A
stone.
lot of people would say sharpening
Sort of.
stone, but actually, if you unclip this, the sharpening stone is embedded into the backside of the sheath. I'll give you a hint. This is an M9 bayonet. The pouch perfectly fits an M9 magazine in there.
Oh, look at that.
So that's what the pouch on this one is for, because the sharpening stone is embedded into the back of the sheath, and the sheath also has the little thing to mate with your knife and turn your knife and sheath into bolt cutters, basically. And I mean, like, that's awesome. They do not issue us stuff like this anymore. And
No, they don't.
when I was in
He,
the go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, when I was in the off-road community, like one of the round the campfire conversations we would always get into is like, we called it legendary gear. Like, you know, who has that piece of legendary gear? And this was always my example of my
I'm going to
legendary
show you.
gear.
Well, here's a piece
Um,
of legendary gear that any any person our age, I'm sure that you all had this. I know that I got mine at a flea market, and it was the greatest thing ever. And it was that
oh yes,
survival
baby.
that survival knife. Now, this one probably had a little Cerakote done to it, but that knife
No, it
was,
probably did not. But
well,
it's
I
probably
mean,
spray painted with.
right. That knife was the pillar of the survival knife. I mean, that thing right there. And if you guys can't see this because you're just listening to it, it was, I don't even, I'm just going to try and paint the picture for you. So it was old school black handle, bulbous end with a compass that you could unscrew. And in the handle were matches, a fishing hook, and some fishing line,
Some fishing
and
weights.
fishing weights. And the holster was a leather-esque style holster.
Leather.
Yeah, pleather with a snap, and on the front was a little square pouch that held your sharpening stone. And this knife, the front was a blade, the back was a serrated edge with a little notch in the back of the blade that was supposed to be used to cut wire because that's how Rambo used it. But
Right.
I mean, I would love to find one of those knives, and I'm sure you can find it on the internet.
So again, I wonder if I still have mine. Like just like a little trip down memory lane. It had to have been like 1986 or 1987. My grandma for Christmas that year, me, my dad, my uncle, and my granddad, that's what we got. We all four of us got those knives from my grandma that year for Christmas, and I might still have mine. I'll have to see. When I was, because going all the way back, a little glimpse into Jamie's life, for as far back as I can remember, literally for as far back as I can remember, I wanted to join the military. I mean, I could show you pictures of me wearing camouflage when I was, with my face painted and everything, when I was 6 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, 15 years old. Like there's a,
It's a little scary.
yeah, that's all I ever wanted to do. And so when I was probably about 9 or 10, like my dad built me like an old GI style footlocker, and I still have it. It's in my storage unit, but that's where I have all the stuff I've been talking about that I had from when I was a kid that I don't currently use. Like the compass, I have that right here because I actually do still use that. The knife I still have, but a lot of that old stuff, it's in that footlocker that my dad built for me. And I wonder if that old mid to late 80s survival knife, I wonder if that's still in there. It might still be.
I'm sure it is. I mean, here's the one that started it all, right? This is the OG. I mean, that you can probably still get that knife, and it was the first blood knife that Rambo, obviously Sylvester Stallone, carried in the movie. But again, you take one of those knives and you stack it up against like a DMO or a half face blades or one of these other ones, and you're talking two different qualities. Again, knife making has been around forever, right? Forging a blade has been around well before this. I mean, you're talking swords and
Yep.
back to early days in Japan and whatnot. But an edge, you can sharpen an edge on an old knife and bring that edge back without a lot of trouble. I mean, I guess comes a point where the edge you can no longer bring it back to sharp. And so talking about old gear when it comes to a knife is one thing, right? But when you're talking about old gear, like optics, like firearm optics, right? Like you just built a clone rifle of a rifle that was used in 1993.
Yep.
And that was a rifle that was used in Mogadishu,
Yep.
a rifle that was used by Delta back then. And, old school carry handle with an aim point on top. Now, aim points are still around, but the evolution of that red dot it's really evolved, right? That red dot has really evolved from what it was back then till now. And I remember you telling me about that red dot and the MOA on it. You're like, I don't even know what the hell this is. Like, it could be 15 MOA. And it's just wild to think about it. Like that was,
it might be more than that. Cause like, if you actually look through, so that was an aim point 5,000, the one that they actually use. That's not the one I put an aim point 9,000 on mine. So it looks the same, but it's a modern 2 MOA dot. But if you actually look through the dot on the aim point 5,000, I would say if you were shooting like for those people that are familiar, like an IPSC target, like an IPSC style target, or an equivalent size like steel human silhouette target, at like 50 yards, that dot is so fat that it covers the entire target. So yeah. But the opposite side of that though is like, you see people today that people want a some nice new gun that you perceive as modern. And the reason I say perceive as modern is because it has an M-LOK handguard, and it has the newest optic that Trijicon just unveiled at SHOT Show, and it has this bolt carrier group from whatever company, and some modern muzzle brake to mount some modern suppressor. But the AR platform rifle has been around since 1956. Really, when you really look at it, it really has changed very little. And when you start talking about different barrel lengths and a different handguard, that's not a change to the firearm.
Right.
The operating system of the firearm has remained mostly unchanged since 1956. The only thing that really has changed is people now in the last couple of decades, like messing around with the gas system. And that's where we came, we went from rifle length to carbine length to mid length to intermediate length and all
Right.
that, and now adjustable
Right.
gas blocks and stuff like that. But for the most part, the guns have remained unchanged since 1956. The rifle that you're talking about that I just built, the Gordon rifle, if you like that gun, if you bought, let me think of a good example. If you bought a new, like fully loaded, fully decked out, the newest, most awesome, like LaRue tactical rifle, the dead center of precision, LaRue tactical.
Okay.
Yes, it's very accurate. It might be accurate to a further distance or whatever, but it's bulkier, it's heavier. Like that Gordon carbine is very streamlined, it's very light. The suppressor that it has on it's the Allen Engineering M4 suppressor, and even by today's standards in 2025, that suppressor is like you just said, it's 1990s technology, but that's still one of the quietest suppressors you can put on an AR platform rifle. Like it's quieter. It's actually quite a bit quieter than like the more modern Surefires that just came out a couple of years ago.
Right.
So that's another example of like, my buddy Pete, he tells the story. It's so funny. He says when he joined the Marines, when they finally got to the point in boot camp where they were like getting issued their rifles, that
Yeah.
like this like, sergeant comes out and he's just carrying like 10 M16s in each hand, just like carrying them by the sling, and just
Yeah.
walks up in front of the whole company of Marine recruits and just like drops them on the ground. And
Oh,
Pete's like,
Jesus.
because
Oh my God.
people buy these, like, in civilian life, people buy these Gucci rifles and they
Right.
handle them with white gloves and they treat them
Oh
like they're
yeah.
so delicate, but they're not delicate. And like
No.
that old technology is still fine. But I think kind of the point, I think where you were going is there is a limit to it. Like back in, let me think, like 2008 maybe, I was issued like a Garmin Fortrex GPS, which back then was like cutting edge.
Right.
Anything electronic, no matter how well you take care of it, it does have an expiration date. Like
Right.
a diesel engine that was built in 1940, as long as you take care of it, it will run until the year 2040 with no problem. But
Agreed.
so like things, I
I,
mean, even like
well,
flashlights.
yeah, but hold on.
Right.
I'm gonna jump in there for a second because I want to just throw a caveat in there for electronics, right? And you just brought up flashlight. I'm so glad that you did. I've got a Surefire flashlight, and it's sitting on my desk. It's yellow. It was the one that I had to go buy when I was a bouncer at a club in Florida. I had to go buy everybody these lights. Now, it's not LED technology. It's old school bulb.
Incandescent,
Incandescent, right? Old school bulb that you can
not even
replace
halogen.
very
Yeah.
exactly, not even halogen. So to kind of devil's advocate what you just said, if I walk into a dark room and I hit the button on the back of that, will it light up the room so I can see in the dark? Yes. Will it perform as well as a 5,000 million candela, cloud defensive EPL light? No, it won't, but it will still light up. Going back to your well, that was it. I mean, your like your red dot or your whatever. Will they still work? Yes. Where it differs though is the technology in the watch. If it doesn't
Right.
perform anymore, yes, you are right.
Well, like that Garmin Fortrex, like, I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's so old. Does it still turn on? Yes. Can it still get a GPS signal? I think so. But it has gotten past the point where I can do a firmware update and like it's really not practically usable anymore. So you do get to a point where this old gear, this legendary gear, A, might have crossed over into the collector gear market, but B, like anything that's electronic, it will eventually get past its service life. And I'm going to devil's advocate what you just said about flashlights, because when I was building my Gary Gordon clone rifle, I had a Surefire flashlight, and I wish, damn it, I just thought of this right now. I should have taken a picture of it. It was a Surefire flashlight that I was issued literally 20 years ago, but because I've been issued so much of this stuff over my career, that Surefire flashlight until like a week ago was still sealed in the original Surefire packaging with the two little batteries. Yeah. And I cut the packaging open and threw it in the trash, and I took the batteries out, because that's the flashlight I wanted to use on my Gary Gordon carbine rifle, because it matches. It's clone correct, as the kids say. Okay. But those Surefire batteries that had been sealed in that package for literally 20 years, I put them in the flashlight, screwed it on, the flashlight turned on. Now, like you said, it's an old school, it's like early 2000s vintage Surefire flashlight with Surefire batteries. I put them in, it did turn on, it did light up, but that old school incandescent bulb sucked ass. I mean, like, it was, did it work? Yes. Did it throw a beam of light across my garage? Yes. But I guess maybe to both of our points, and to devil's advocate, what both of us are saying, I can go to Malkoff Devices, I can pay $46, I can take my old flashlight that I got issued when I was at the SEAL team in the year 2001 or whatever, I can unscrew the head, take this little thing out, put the Malkoff device in with the same batteries, the same flashlight body, the same everything. Now this flashlight is now literally 10 times better with a $40 upgrade. And it walks the tightrope between the two things we're talking about, between new gear and old gear, because it is still the old flashlight. It's still a 25-year-old flashlight or whatever, but I spent $46, put a new bulb assembly in it, and now the flashlight is literally 10 times better.
Yeah. So I'm trying to find a picture. So just because we brought up flashlights, and I think it's a great one to talk about when we do this contrast between old gear versus new gear. And I go back to, like I said, I had worked in a couple of nightclubs when I was younger as a bouncer, and we always had a flashlight, because that's kind of how we communicated during during the night, to communicate with our other bouncers or whatnot. Like you'd hit a quick little flashlight.
Have you and I talked about this? Like, lately, bouncers have been telling me I cannot come into a bar or club or concert.
Well, I mean, we talked about it at one point, but not in full on depth. But it is, like I said, it is the way that we would communicate back in the day, and so what I find interesting about that is, you do that with one of these modern day lights, you'll light up the whole club. Like, 1,000 lumens, you do the whole thing. Where the light that I'm about to show you here was kind of old school, like you said, incandescent. And while it was bright, I don't know the exact lumens that it was back in the day, but it was I guess it was bright enough where obviously it lit up, but you could you close your fist around it. So you had it in your hand, you close your fist around it, and you can get a very fine beam to.
That's a technique I still use, by the way, even on my monitor.
To notify the other bouncer that you were leaving your post, but you were fine, right? So this was the battery this is the flashlight that we used, and I still have this flashlight. I thought it was a Streamlight, but I haven't been able to find it. But this flashlight right here, it took 4 AA batteries, and you would have to like jam 2 in, and then you have to jam the other 2 in on an angle. But it was. And it was a twist on, right? It was a twist on 165 lumens. There you go.
That's exactly, like, that's what I was about to say. Like, back, I didn't know what flashlight you were going to show up, but I was like, the old Surefire that I was just talking about back then. If a flashlight was 150 lumens, like that was a big deal. So,
Yeah, it was. And so what's funny is the Surefire light that I'm talking about that was yellow. Again, I
Yep.
had to go buy those for all of the bouncers, and I was able to keep the one that I wanted, which was the yellow one for whatever reason. I wanted it to stand out versus everybody else. But the reason I'm going back to this flashlight situation is because that flashlight that I just showed you, I have it in blue. It is still sitting on my workbench down in the basement, and it still operates fine. Is it as bright? No, it is not, but it still works. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you can get away with an older light and it will still light up. But at some point, like we were just talking about, you can't do that, right? When it comes to technology that is kind of outdated. The flashlight that I have, it's no longer on the website, but on Surefire's website. But what was interesting is I was able to go on and find you can replace the head and get rid of the incandescent and go with an LED light on it. So you can upgrade some of that.
Yeah.
Last thing about old technology versus new technology. And one of the things, like my first rifle, I got a red dot from my buddy who worked at True Glow. Okay. Judge all you want.
It's not a hollow sun. You're good.
It was listen, you're not going to get, I'm going to give you no quarter because you're buying a Vortex from the same factory. They literally, it's two assembly lines. They're like Holosun, Vortex. Same thing. But it was a
You don't
True
know.
Glow. It was, I know, it was a True Glow. And I put it on my scary black rifle, and then I rattle canned that rifle and painted it. So nice. So nice.
Hey, I'm about to do that with my Gary Gordon rifle.
Right.
So, hey.
Now, I can tell you the amount of times I went to training and everybody would ask if it was the aim point, the aim point micro H2 looks exactly the same. I swear to you, True Glow used the exact same housing for that optic. And I'd be like, no, it's not. And that was it. Where I'm going with this is I've got a rifle right now that needs an optic. Does it make sense for me to go buy another optic, whether you like EOTech or not, or an aim point or not, or a Trijicon or not, or I can go downstairs, open the safe, pull out that True Glow. I guarantee you, I haven't had that optic has not been on a rifle since 2014. I guarantee you I can go down to that optic, pick it up, and the red dot will be on. Guaranteed.
Yeah, so there's that's another one of these little boundaries or limits or whatever that I would say it's to me it's like if you drive a Ferrari but you go down to AutoZone and get a $3 Fram oil filter and put on it, like, because now that Ferrari engine that cost $500,000 is now at the mercy of this $3 oil filter. So to me, like, a sighting system on my rifle is that one I'll kind of furrow my brow at, and only because now there are options where you can get the aim point patrol rifle optic that's less expensive, and they based that PRO off of the Comp M2. But to our points, still works fine, but it's still an incredibly high quality optic with kind of modern features that's less expensive. So I would still lean in that direction for that specific example.
But if I handed you my AR, my AR was sighted in, I was hitting point of aim, point of impact with my red dot rifle. It was painted. You couldn't tell what it was. And you pick that rifle up and you start doing the same thing. Again, that rifle is older than 10 years.
Yeah.
When you pull that rifle up and you look down through that optic and there's a red dot and you put it on the target, you pull the trigger and that hole appears on the paper where that red dot was. I mean, tell me how it's
No, that then you're 100% right. I cannot argue. If
right.
that's the case, I can't argue with that.
Right. I mean, if you put a battery in and the thing lasts for 4 hours, then the battery goes out. Yeah, sure. Maybe some outdated technology. Where I guess where we're going with that, and as we get to the end of the episode and wrap it up, I hope everyone kind of understood the underlying tone here of what we were talking about. I can go down and pick out an optic out of my safe and put it on a rifle, or I could go buy another $650, $700, $800 optic and put it on my rifle. What is the difference going to be, right? So it may serve the needs to do that instead of going out and getting something new. If you can go out and get something new and you want to do it, by all means, do it. But I've got an old TLR1 that will fit on a firearm, and it's 500 lumens, and it will illuminate just like a brand new Surefire X300, but it's now 700 lumens, or the new Cloud Defense EPL that is better candela than that Surefire, right? So
Yeah.
I can do that. But if you are at your financial ceiling, look around and you might find old gear that is just as good and will suit your needs for what you need, right? I'm going camping again. Yeah.
Or is very easily modified to be good for, like, just a couple of last examples because we're wrapping up. Like, the late 80s, early 90s, the military called it ALICE gear, ALICE. It's all conditions, lightweight, individual carry equipment was the acronym, but it was ALICE gear. So the old ALICE pack was a rigid frame backpack. It's, I think it's like what they used in the Predator movie, or even if you watch like Platoon, the movie Platoon, it's the backpack they all have in Platoon. Those are phenomenal, and you can you can take that backpack. The only thing that kind of sucks about them is the buckle and strap system that they use.
Yeah.
If you know how to sew, you can cut that off, replace it with the modern like little plastic clip buckles, and that old Alice pack with a little bit of slight modification becomes an awesome backpack. Another like a little small example, like talking about going to the Army Navy surplus store, just USGI, U.S. military issue hand grenade pouches are phenomenal, just general purpose pouches, and you can buy them probably for just a couple of bucks at an Army Navy surplus store. And then if you know how to use a needle and thread, you can sew them to make them a different size. You need to get there before Tim Kennedy does, because he's going to buy all the hand grenade pouches.
And you got me right before. I was like, oh, how can I get in there? If you need 50 of them, you're going to have to get something else.
Yeah. But that, like, just the hand grenade pouches they're great for fitting a compass. They're great for fitting a fire kit. They're great for fitting a flashlight, depending on your flashlight. I mean, like the hand grenade pouches are the perfect size to be used for a million different things. With just, if you know how to use a needle and thread, you can modify, and that's something you can get for super cheap, easily modify it, and it's great, old gear, that'll get you down the road.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, thank you so much for joining us. And I think what we're going to do probably on an upcoming show here is we're going to talk. We talked today about old gear, but I think the next time what we're going to do is we're going to talk about new gear that you can get through some of our brand partners here at ZERT. We've brought some new ones on, and as a member of ZERT, you do get discounts to those things. And we have some really cool stuff to talk about with some of those companies, whether it's gear, whether it's bags, whether it's, all of the stuff that we kind of just went over today. We've got an option for those things. So until next time, you guys stay safe, stay prepared. Jamie?
That's it, man. That's all I got. It's easy to be hard. It's hard to be smart.
Awesome. Okay, guys. ZP002